Good morning, Moray Rabotai. We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch HaChaim, and we are basically finishing up the halachot of Kriyat Shema. It's been a long journey of 30 Simanim, from Siman Nunchet all the way now to Pechet. And today, basically, we're finishing up the last Ramah in Siman Pechet about the topic that the Ramah brings, the Minhag of Ashkenazim, not to come to shul for women when they are actually actively during their menstrual cycle. And he writes that Mikar Adin, halachically speaking, there's no problem. There are those who say that she should not enter Bet Knesset and not to even daven or mention Hashem's name, and there are those who disagree. Halacha is that is mutar. But then the Rama adds that the Minhag Ashkenazim has been to be stringent in Arei Ashkenaz in Germany. Aval haminhag b'medinot elu kisvara rishona. In our places, I mean, he was the Rav of Krakow, the minhag is to be machmir. And during the Shiva Nekiim, when she's still tameh, but she's not actually in the middle of cycle, then the minhag is to be mekel, to be lenient, even though that the level of tum'ah is still the same, halachically speaking, but the minhag is to be mekel. Even in places that they are machmir, during Yamim Noraim, Elul and Tishrei, that everyone is coming to shul, it's very difficult to withhold from going when everyone else is going. A lot of people are coming to Bet Knesset, mutarin lelech. Then they could go. Like everyone else. Kihu lahem itzavon, it will be very depressing for them. Shakol mitasfin, that everyone is going and they will stand outside. That will be pretty difficult emotionally for them. Therefore, says the Rama, it's mutar. Now the Mishnah writes on that. He brings first and foremost the Binyamin Zev, who says that the only minhag is not to go to shul, but not to daven. And the Ben Ish Chai says the same thing, that the minhag is they stay from going to shul, like the Ramah, but they do daven, of course. And in Elul and Tishrei, they even go to the Bet Knesset. Now, the Kaf HaChaim writes that the minhag in Eretz Yisrael, as we mentioned before, is that they go to shul even during the active Riyah, when their cycle is active, and only when they know that they may be dirty, and again, the hygiene level was not as sophisticated as it is nowadays with personal hygiene level and pads and so on and so forth. So then it would be kavod of Bet Knesset to not go when they are not clean. And the Mishnah brings in Seif Katan Vav that the Haskamat Achronim, the decision, the psak of the majority of Achronim is that she is mechuyevet. She must do the davenings at home. It's not that she has it off from davening just because she is in the middle of her cycle. She has to daven, she must daven, but she does it at home, not going to shul. And Chacham Ovadia writes that even if she had a minhag mistakenly not to daven or say brachot, she has to be mebatel her minhag, she has to nullify her minhag, and she doesn't even need hatarat nedarim, because the minhag ta'ut is a mistake, and she has to be mebatel the minhag without any hatara. And of course the Chafetz Chaim writes in Seif Katan Zayin in Mishna Berura that in the countries that he was a Rav in Radin, but it says in our place the minhag is they always say bracha and they always daven. That's the minhag. And yet, says the Chafetz Chaim, lo yistaklu b'sefer Torah b'shash magbim ota la'arot la'am. They should not look at the Sefer Torah when they pick up the Torah to show it to the people. And that you find in some of the Sephardi countries as well, that was the old minhag. And the Kaf HaChaim writes it the same way. It's the source. Well, you wonder why the minhag is that some women don't look at the Torah during their period. Is because of this Kaf HaChaim. And yet, he says that when they have the actual flow and it's not necessarily clean, then they should stop their tefillah and also make sure that they have a clean matlit. Again, nowadays people use personal pads and tampons and so on. So to have a fresh one before they stand to daven, that the guf again should be naki, they should be clean. Now the Kaf HaChaim says for this hagbah thing, the Chafetz Chaim says the minhag is when they do hagbah, the women who are nida do not look at it. The Kaf HaChaim writes that it's mutar for a nida to look at Sefer Torah. There's no problem with that. And it's not only that, it's also mutar for her to hold on to a Sefer Torah. And Harvadia says the same thing. Mordechai Eliyahu writes that not only she's muteret to touch it, it's also mutar to take a look at it, but nevertheless, he says they should not start reading and be mitbonen in the otiyot, to think about them. I'm not sure exactly what the gather of that is, but that's what Mordechai Eliyahu alav shalom writes. Nevertheless, again, nowadays I think the minhag has changed since Chacham Obadiah's many years ago. He started really campaigning against this, that there's no problem with it and so on. So I think the current minhag certainly is that women come to shul, they don't differentiate if they are in nidah or not nidah. That's really the way the halacha is conquered, and the minhag as well. And the last piece over here is that the Mishnah Berura writes in Seif Katan Zayin, in Od Zayin, it says that the minhag also is not to go to Bet HaKvarot for women. I read from the language of the Chafetz Chaim here, from the Chayei Adam, Od Katav, Shelo Yikansu LeBet HaKvarot Ad Sheyitpelu. They should not go to cemetery until they go to Tevilah, and that basically seems to indicate that even in Shiva Nekiyim, not only when they're actively seeing, but even during Shiva Nekiyim, it will be Asur until they actually go to Mikveh, and the Kaf HaChaim says the same thing. Again, Chacham Obadiah over here disagrees, and he says that this is a Chumra Yetera, this is too much of a stringency, and therefore even those who are normally nohek to be Machmir, they don't have to be specifically machmir about this in Yemei Libun. Even if you don't want to go during the time that you're actively seeing, but during the Shiva Nekiyim is not a problem. And he adds that in a place that there is a clear minhag, that they don't go to Bet Knesset, the women, when they have their cycle, they are still mutar to go to Bet HaKvarot during the Yemei Re'iyah. Now, it's important to note that according to Ariya Kadosh, is going to be asur to go to Bet HaKvarot anyways, based on Zohar. So this is something that becomes one of those areas of machloket between the poskim and the mekubalim, whether or not a woman is mutar to go to Bet HaKvarot. B'ezrat Hashem, we will be continuing the next Siman in the days to come.